The Galactic Council chamber had never been silent before. Thousands of worlds filled its endless tiers with whispers, arguments, and political games that stretched across centuries. But when the transmission from the outer colonies arrived, every voice died at once. On the central hologram burned the image of a shattered fleet drifting above a dead moon. Entire battle cruisers had been torn apart as though some invisible titan had ripped them open with bare hands. Then came the final line from the surviving commander, his voice shaking beneath static. The Breth Dominion has officially declared war on Earth. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Then panic erupted across the chamber. Diplomats shouted over one another. Military leaders demanded confirmation, and trade ministers looked ready to faint. The elder races of the galaxy knew exactly what Earth was. Humanity had only joined interstellar civilization 70 years earlier, but in that short time they had earned a reputation that frightened even ancient empires. They were the species that survived a death world through sheer stubbornness, the species that weaponized storms, split atoms, and turned near-extinction events into engineering projects. And now someone had been foolish enough to provoke them. High Chancellor Valetus slowly rose from his throne of silver crystal, his pale eyes fixed on the burning fleet. "Tell me," he asked quietly, "who authorized this declaration?" Across the chamber, the Breth ambassador straightened proudly. Towering and armored in ceremonial black steel, he showed no fear. "The Dominion bows to no species," he growled. "Human expansion threatened our borders. We acted with strength." Several council members physically recoiled. One elder diplomat covered his face with trembling hands. "You don't understand," whispered the ambassador from the Lyrian Republic. "Humans do not respond like civilized races." But the Breth only laughed. Their empire had conquered dozens of systems through overwhelming force. They believed humans were young, emotional, and technologically inferior. They saw Earth as just another rising power that could be crushed before it grew stronger. What they failed to realize was that humanity's greatest weapon had never been its ships. It was its memory. On Earth, the declaration arrived during a peaceful morning. Children walked to school beneath blue skies while freighters crossed oceans filled with sunlight. Then every screen on the planet switched to emergency broadcasts. The President of Earth stood before the United Nations Defense Assembly, her expression cold and controlled. Behind her hung the flags of every nation on Earth united into one banner. "At 600 hours, she announced, the Breth Dominion launched attacks against civilian colonies in the Vega corridor. Thousands are dead. Effective immediately, Earth is now in a state of total war." Humanity did not panic. That terrified the galaxy even more. Factories that had produced civilian transports converted into war production within hours. Mining stations became shipyards. Commercial freighters were transformed into supply carriers overnight. Across Earth's colonies, billions volunteered for military service without hesitation. The galaxy watched in disbelief as an entire civilization shifted into wartime unity with impossible speed. Ancient races that required years to mobilize stared in horror as humanity prepared for war in less than 3 days. The Breth expected fear. Instead, Earth sent a message. A single transmission arrived in every military frequency across known space. There was no shouting, no threats, no boasting. Only a calm human voice. "You attacked our civilians. You murdered our people. We are coming." Then the transmission ended. Somehow, that simple sentence frightened the galaxy more than any declaration of vengeance ever had. The first battle took place at the Breth fortress world of Corvax Prime. The Dominion deployed over 4,000 warships around the planet, certain no fleet could penetrate their defenses. Then human vessels emerged from hyperspace in complete silence. The Council observers expected chaotic aggression from the infamous humans. What they witnessed instead was terrifying precision. Human destroyers moved like predators hunting in perfect coordination. Electronic warfare blinded enemy sensors. Orbital rail cannons fired with surgical accuracy. Within 40 minutes, the supposedly invincible Breth fleet had ceased to exist. But humanity did not bombard the planet. They targeted military infrastructure only. Defense platforms, shipyards, weapon depots. Civilian zones remained untouched. When Breth commanders attempted to use cities as shields, human marines launched direct ground assaults instead of firing from orbit. Millions across the galaxy watched live footage of armored human soldiers charging through artillery fire to evacuate enemy civilians trapped in combat zones. The contradiction shattered every expectation. Humanity fought with unmatched fury, yet refused to abandon its principles. Inside the council chamber, fear spread like disease. Reports flooded in faster than officials could process them. Human fleets advanced through Dominion territory at speeds considered impossible. Entire Dravari armadas vanished in hours. Colonies surrendered without resistance after hearing rumors of Earth's unstoppable advance. Yet everywhere the humans conquered, they restored power grids, delivered food supplies, and established refugee shelters for civilians, including Dravari citizens. The Dravari leadership still refused to surrender. Supreme Warlord Karveth appeared before his generals aboard the fortress flagship Blood Ascendant. "They are only animals," he snarled. "Bleed them long enough and they will collapse." But even his officers no longer believed him. They had seen human ships continue fighting after suffering catastrophic damage. They had watched wounded human soldiers drag allies through firestorms rather than retreat. They had intercepted battlefield recordings of humans laughing while facing impossible odds. It was not bravery anymore. It was something far more dangerous. Then came the siege of Tharos Station. Over 2 million civilians had been trapped after Dravari forces sabotaged the station's reactors during retreat. The explosion would destroy the entire system within hours. The Council expected humanity to abandon the station and continue the offensive. Instead, the human fleet halted its advance entirely. Thousands of engineers and rescue teams entered the dying station, despite radiation levels that killed other species instantly. Human crews worked until their bodies collapsed, manually stabilizing reactors while carrying civilians to safety. More than 60,000 humans died saving people who were not even their own citizens. The galaxy could not comprehend it. Humanity fought like monsters in battle, yet sacrificed themselves for strangers without hesitation. Ancient philosophers argued endlessly over the contradiction. One council elder finally spoke the truth during an emergency session. "That," she said softly, "is why Earth is feared. Humans are at their most dangerous when defending others." As the war continued, unrest spread throughout the Dominion. Dravari civilians began seeing human soldiers not as invaders but liberators. Captured worlds reported fair treatment, medical aid, and restored infrastructure. Meanwhile, the Dominion leadership executed its own people for retreating. Entire Dravari battalions started surrendering voluntarily. Some even switched sides after witnessing human rescue operations. Supreme Warlord Karveth descended into madness. Refusing defeat, he ordered the activation of the Dominion's forbidden weapon, a stellar collapse device capable of turning entire suns into supernovas. His target was Earth itself. When the Council discovered the plan, horror consumed the chamber. Even races that feared humanity knew such an act would destroy billions. Emergency pleas were sent across the galaxy, but before anyone could act, human intelligence forces intercepted the launch codes. What followed became legend. Human special operations units infiltrated the heavily defended Dominion capital through volcanic tunnels beneath the planet's surface. Outnumbered hundreds to one, they fought through impossible conditions to reach the weapon core. The final transmission from their commander echoed across military channels moments before detonation. "Mission complete. Tell Earth we held the line." The resulting explosion destroyed the weapon and half the fortress complex. None of the human team survived. The Dominion collapsed 3 days later. Its remaining fleet surrendered unconditionally. Across the galaxy, celebrations erupted as the war finally ended. But inside the council chamber, nobody celebrated louder than the races who had once feared humanity most, because they understood how close the galaxy had come to extinction. Had Earth chosen vengeance instead of restraint, entire civilizations could have vanished. Weeks later, Earth's representatives arrived before the council. Every species watched carefully as the human delegation entered the chamber. They expected triumph, arrogance, perhaps demands for territory or power. Instead, the lead human ambassador stepped forward quietly. "The war is over," she said. "We ask only for peace and reconstruction efforts for all affected systems, including former Dominion worlds." Silence filled the chamber once more. The elder races stared at the humans with something far deeper than fear now. Respect. Humanity had possessed every reason to become conquerors after such a war. Instead, they chose mercy. And somehow, that mercy felt even more terrifying than their fleets. The old Lyrian ambassador slowly looked toward the ruined Dravari representative seated alone in shame. His voice trembled as he spoke the words that would echo through galactic history forever. "The Council stared in horror when you declared war on Earth," he whispered. "Because unlike you, We knew what humans truly were. Far beyond the council chamber, Earth continued turning beneath peaceful skies. Children still walked to school. Oceans still shimmered beneath sunlight. Humanity returned to ordinary life as though they had not just shattered the most powerful empire in known space. But across the galaxy, one lesson would never be forgotten again. Never force humanity to remind the stars why Earth survived. Long after the surrender treaties were signed, recovery fleets moved through the shattered regions of former Dominion space. Human engineers rebuilt jump gates, repaired orbital habitats, and restored atmosphere processors on dying colonies. Entire worlds expected occupation forces and military governors. Instead, they received doctors, construction crews, and food convoys escorted by heavily armed human destroyers that never fired a shot. For many citizens of the fallen Dominion, it was the first time in their lives they had seen power used without cruelty. Yet beneath the surface of peace, fear still lingered across the galaxy. Intelligence agencies intercepted thousands of private communications between alien governments, discussing the same terrifying possibility. What if humanity ever stopped showing restraint? Analysts replayed footage from the war repeatedly, studying how quickly Earth's fleets adapted during combat. Human commanders changed tactics in minutes while ancient military doctrines took years to evolve. Every simulation reached the same conclusion. If Earth ever chose conquest, no coalition could stop them. On the ruined world of Korvax Prime, a memorial was built where the first great battle had ended. Human and Dravari names were carved together into black stone, stretching for kilometers across the scarred landscape. Veterans from both sides attended the ceremony in silence. A human marine who had lost an arm during the siege stood beside a former Dravari commander, whose fleet he had destroyed. Neither spoke for a long time. Then the Dravari quietly asked, "Why did you save us after everything we did?" The human stared at the endless rows of names before answering. "Because if we stop being human during war, then the war wins." The statement spread through galactic networks within hours. Billions heard it. Some mocked it as weakness. Others called it wisdom. But among younger civilizations, humanity's actions sparked something unexpected: hope. Smaller species that had spent centuries living beneath the shadow of larger empires suddenly realized strength did not have to mean oppression. Human alliances grew rapidly as independent systems requested diplomatic partnerships with Earth instead of military protection. They trusted humanity because Earth had proven it could destroy enemies without becoming monsters. Not everyone accepted the new balance peacefully. In the hidden edges of known space, surviving Dominion warlords gathered among drifting asteroid fortresses and forgotten mining systems. They blamed their defeat not on arrogance but on mercy. To them, Karveth had failed because he underestimated humanity's brutality. Their solution was simple: next time, strike harder and faster. Secret shipyards began producing weapons in the dark, while extremist leaders preached revenge to frightened survivors. Earth knew about all of it. Human intelligence networks had infiltrated the remnants months earlier, yet instead of launching extermination campaigns, humanity watched carefully from a distance. The Council could not understand why. Why allow them to rebuild? One senator demanded during an emergency session. The human ambassador answered calmly, "Because endless vengeance creates endless war. We will defend ourselves if necessary, but we will not become executioners for an entire species." Then came the event that changed galactic history forever. A deep space exploration vessel near the Perseus Expanse detected something emerging beyond the mapped borders of known space. At first, scientists believed it was a natural phenomenon. Then the stars themselves began disappearing. Entire systems went dark without distress calls. Refugee ships fled inward, carrying impossible stories of massive biomechanical fleets consuming planets whole. Ancient records hidden by elder races finally revealed the truth. The galaxy was not alone. Something ancient had returned. Panic consumed the Council once again, but this time the fear was universal. Military projections showed the incoming force dwarfing every fleet in known space combined. Civilizations that had spent centuries fighting each other suddenly faced extinction together. One by one, ambassadors turned toward the human delegation seated silently at the center of the chamber. Humanity had become the species everyone looked toward when survival itself was threatened. The President of Earth listened to the reports without visible emotion. When the final projection ended, she stood slowly and looked across the terrified assembly. You once feared humanity because of what we could do in war, she said. Now you will understand why we fight so hard to protect peace. She activated a secure transmission key, carried only by Earth's highest command authority. Across hidden shipyards buried beneath moons, oceans, and mountains, ancient systems awakened for the first time in decades. Deep within the solar system, colossal structures emerged from darkness. War moons larger than cities powered on beneath layers of ice around Neptune. Hidden fleets rose from beneath the oceans of Europa. Automated factories buried inside asteroids began producing weapons at unimaginable speed. Humanity had not dismantled its wartime machine after defeating the Dominion. It had merely gone silent, and as the galaxy watched Earth prepare for another war, one terrible realization spread through the council chamber like ice through blood. Humanity had been holding back the entire time.